So we recently put out a video on the Defiant's debut. In it, we posted a couple questions regarding the Defiant and Update 48, which we now have answers to, hence this hopefully short, maybe not, video. The first question that we had, a lot of you guys answered in the comments. Thank you guys so very much. We have the best, most knowledgeable comment section on all of YouTube. I have checked. Thank you guys. Regarding the Defiant's blueprints not being accessible in the store once you go ahead and purchase it. It doesn't show up anymore in that 𝗂𝘂𝗶𝘁 faction store for you to spend those 𝗂𝘂𝗶𝘁 credits on to go ahead and get blueprints after you have already obtained a copy of it. This is just like the 𝗂𝗲 was when we did our video on that not too long ago on picking up a second 𝗂𝗲. This way we recommend a lot of players to get the first one completely free to play over the course of about 23 days, and then you can go ahead and get your second one however you want to. That's not quite the case with the Defiant. We'll get into a little bit more of that later, but I did want to talk about sourcing really quickly. This means if you think you will ever pick up a complete Defiant for a purchase, just all the blueprints right off the bat, do not ever waste any of your 𝗂𝘂𝗶𝘁 credits on blueprints for it, because you won't get anything back out of it. For those of you who are trying to go half and half on this, are going to pick up half the blueprints out of the store, get the other half free to play. Make sure that you do not get even one blueprint beyond 50. It's not going to help you at all. You're going to waste those resources on picking that up. For those of you completely free to play or semi free to play trying to pick up this ship, there is some good news here. There are some missions that are in the hollow deck. If you have your matrix diodes, I believe you can go pick those up. There's also some missions in 𝗂𝘂𝗶𝘁, I think. For some reason, they're just on the map now that were added. Go check that system if you don't have them yet. But I was able to pick up like 3 Defiant blueprints yesterday, just running around the galaxy, taking care of stuff that was in my quest log. For operations level 20-ish, in that range, they were all really easy for me at operations level 43, keeping in mind that you have to be a shipyard level 35 to build this ship. Those are very doable for any player that's in the range that's looking to actually build this Defiant anytime soon. I also wanted to point out that we know that this arc ends next month. It's a 4-month arc. It ends in December, so it's extremely likely that there will be a way to source some of these Defiant blueprints out of that end of arc store that we've become accustomed to. I think that's part of why I believe it was released this month, and it won't be coming, next month since it's already here. I think we'll get another crew that will come out that will help round out what we've got for the Defiant next month, and I think that possibly we will see a way to source some of those blueprints free to play in the end of arc store. Maybe, maybe not. This has not been confirmed. To me, it would be completely crazy to not allow free to play some way to speed up this. Sure, we were looking at 100 days originally. Now it's 97 if you go pick up 3 of those blueprints from the missions that we just mentioned, and you can probably shave off at least, I'd say, 2 weeks. I don't know yet, but that seems reasonable to me to shave off another 2 weeks from that if you spent your event store loot on it next month. Seems crazy for it to not be there. If you're watching this video in December of 2022 and came back and found this thing and it's not in there, can go ahead and leave in the comments that I was wrong, so very, very wrong. Sorry if that's the case. It seems crazy to me that it wouldn't be in there. Anyhow, on to the other big question that we left off on yesterday. We touched briefly on one of the new primes that came around, the Prime Swarm Refinery. We kind of ignored the other ones. We'll touch on that a little bit in a moment. I was even so bold in the previous video to state that if you don't get 5 times the amount of resource tokens from this prime, then it's completely not worth it. You should stay away from it, etc. We're going to check in on that Swarm Refinery and make certain that it affects your tokens. It really better. If it doesn't affect those tokens, then I'm a liar. Don't get that thing. It's horrible. Stay away from it. But it should affect your tokens. If so, 5 times the amount of resources out of your daily refinery. Now, thanks to 𝗂𝗏 from the BHD Gaming crew, he took one for the team. We are able to confirm now what you get from this prime. 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵 made a liar out of Dan yet again. You're not going to get 5 times the amount of tokens for your resources that you got before you picked up this prime. You're actually going to get 6 times. It is a 500% increase. If you have a base right now, you don't have anything else going to it, that's 100%. You're going to get an additional 500%, which means if you do your swarms every single day like you should be doing them, then you should store up enough biotics and enough biominerals to be able to pull 2 of the 3 different types of resources every single day and get 6 times what you got previously. This is amazing for players who constantly find themselves getting raided, or who just have a lot of anxiety that they might get raided, even if they have good shield discipline. There's people out there that have a lot of what I call shield anxiety. They either get raided occasionally and they're very gun shy about it, or they've never been raided and they still are really worried that they're going to get raided. This could give you some sort of peace of mind, make it easier to sleep at night, because nobody can take your resource tokens from you if you get raided. Sure, they can get what's in your warehouse before you hit your vaults. Everything vaulted, of course, is yours, but those vaults don't help that much. Your resource tokens are your raid insurance. It's how you can go ahead and recover from raids really quickly. This is going to help you a lot. And for those of you who aren't going to pick this thing up, there is no free-to-play sourcing option. I hope that at some point in time down the road we can get one. Maybe if I get to be a fly in 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵𝘁's ear, I can start trying to push for some of these primes that you guys want to get access to from a free-to-play standpoint, especially if they've been in the game for a long, long time. I don't think we'll get this anytime soon, even if we're successful at getting a couple of the other ones free to play. But I think even if you are not a player that's going to pick this up, the fact that there's a way for people to kind of have a little bit more peace of mind if they got raided and recover from it, means that if you're the kind of person that goes out there and raids a lot, it's very likely that we'll get people that are a little bit more lax than they are currently, because they know that they got the tokens that they can go ahead and recover from. So this might be a good thing for the economy overall. I don't know if this was something 𝘂𝗶𝘁 really thought about, is the psychology of how players are going to act if they do pick up this prime. But as far as I see it right now, this is very much worth it if you have the means to pick up a $100 prime in the game. This one's a really good one. This one's going to give you almost a week's worth of your resources for a day's worth of work over what you currently had. And there's really no point in time, even if you're at war, you should be finding time to go do your swarm dailies. They make up like half of your points towards that final chest every single day. They are totally worth doing. Don't fall behind on your Franklin, even if you don't pick up this prime. If you're doing your swarms like you should, this one is going to help you tremendously if you have the means to pick it up. That being said, G5 economy is all whack. If you are a player that is G5 and beyond, probably not worth it to you, but especially if you're earlier on in the game, you can get daily use out of this as long as you're playing the game. That's the only issue I have with it. It is not completely passive, but it is just a bolt-on to what you should already be doing every day that you log into the game anyways. To me, it's a no-brainer. If you have the money, go ahead and pick this up. If you don't have the money, don't worry. We're going to see what we can do. Maybe something, maybe nothing, but we're going to see if we can try to start getting some of these other primes, especially the older ones, available to players for free and or cheap if we get the opportunity. Now, we did completely neglect to mention the Prime Daily Faction event that came around at the same time. It exists. It's in that galaxy tree. Theoretically, it looks good, but honestly, if you are the type of player, especially early on in the game, I caution you strongly against picking this up. Reason being, you really need to manage what your reputation level is. If you're getting double the reputation, yeah, the credits are great, but if you're getting double the reputation every single day from this can really put you in a bad situation to where you have outpaced your faction reputation outside of what you're able to do for your dailies. I highly recommend that if you are not the type of player that is paying attention to what your reputation is every single day and willing to stick a knife in the back of whoever your highest reputation is to go ahead and keep them in that manageable space for you to be able to do all your dailies the way that you ought to every single day, don't get this prime. I'm 100% trying to caution you against doing this. If you are not watching your faction reputation like a hawk, if you're not good at managing that, don't pick up this prime. It's gonna put you in a bad spot to get too much reputation too quickly. Now, real quickly, if you'll do us a favor, engage that like button for us. It helps us out tremendously on the channel. Thank you very much. No, really, thank you. It does help out a lot. We're gonna circle back in one moment to the Defiant. There's some other stuff that we really want to go ahead and put out there for players, but before we do that, if we could have just a second more of your time. My wife is a member of the BHD8 Gaming crew. She handles some graphics. You've probably seen her in the intro for some of the highlight videos if you watch those. We've recently discovered that one of us is weird, and we don't know which one it is, so we need your help to figure it out. So for all my life, when I'm sleeping in my bed, I use a flat sheet and a blanket and or a comforter. I'm a flat sheeter, apparently. Before she got with me, she said that she only ever used a blanket or a comforter, no flat sheet. That seems really weird to me, but I want to go ahead and get your guys' opinion. Are you a flat sheeter? Are you a blanket only type person? Or do you just go sit in an alcove and regenerate until morning? Leave a comment down below and help us solve this once and for all, please. Now, back to the Defiant sourcing. We had a lot of players ask us if multiple Defiants could be useful in solo armadas. The answer to that, of course, is sure, they could be useful. It does not seem remotely economically worth it to do so at this time, which is why we don't think it's that big of a deal that the Defiant blueprints will leave that faction store once you go ahead and get your hands on one. It's not like the 𝗂𝗲. The 𝗂𝗲, you really need 2 of them. We always tell people to go ahead and try to get 2 of them as quickly as possible because of that build and scrap mechanic, which is just not present on the Defiant. You have to have a second 𝗂𝗲. That way, if an event rolls around and you've got one in the scrapper or it's not built up, you can go ahead and be ready to go. If somebody in your alliance launches an armada, you have a 𝗂𝗲 available to go ahead and hit that, even if your other one's in the scrapper. That's why we recommend that. You do not need that with the Defiant. So don't worry too much that the blueprints go away once you go ahead and get your hands on a Defiant. We don't think there's a lot of value in picking one up, especially when you look at the cost. The ship is operations locked at every single tier. It goes all the way up to 12. You'll need from grade 3 materials all the way up to grade 5 materials to completely max out one of these ships. We don't know how you pick up the token lock things that you need to do at the operations level anyways, if you can just go ahead and buy another one if you need to get it through the faction store like you have to do with the Franklin. We don't know what it's going to actually cost you to pick up even more than 1 of the Defiant, let alone 3 of them. We totally caution players against. Get that out of your head. We don't think it's a good idea at this point in time. Maybe on down the road when somebody has gone ahead and actually put that to the test, we'll change our tune on it, but right now doesn't look like it. Don't worry about it. 1 is plenty. I've heard some players approach this from, well, what if I wanted to buff more than 1 ship that's in a normal armada? I can't do that. The Defiant only hits 1 ship. The way that it reads and the word on the street is that at some point in time, they will fix this to where it will apply to everyone in an armada if you buff that. I don't know if that's true or not. That has not been confirmed by 𝘂𝗶𝘁. That is just what I'm hearing through the rumor mill, if you will. One other thing I wanted to point out is that the Bajoran faction loop is a really, really good loop. Even before the Defiant got introduced, I was completely committed to doing that loop. There's some great stuff in there. Those Bajoran favors are awesome. The resources that are in there are pretty good. The officers, of course, with 𝗂𝗀𝗃𝗃 and Miles in there. Here is the spy, don't worry about that. The officers that you get in there are great too. It was totally worthwhile to do before the Defiant came around. It's still worthwhile to do. The Defiant, its main draw is that it's going to help you get those edict tokens, which are like the premium thing that you get from the armadas anyways. That's the big thing it's going to help you with. So if you're a free-to-play player, if you don't have the Defiant, if you don't think you're ever going to get the Defiant, then the Bajoran faction loop is still worth your time if you're going to play this game, as far as I'm concerned. That was always my goal, is to do it. The Defiant just makes that a little bit better to me. But I don't feel a overwhelming amount of stress to go ahead and try to tell everybody to go ahead and just drop what you're doing and go get the Defiant. It's a great looking ship. It has some really cool abilities and things there, but I don't think that this is just like, oh, if you don't have the Defiant, just you ruined your game because you can't do the Bajoran faction store. Not only that, this transparent model of sourcing that we have, where it's 100 days at worst to go ahead and pick it up if you were so inclined to do so, that's great. But once again, the level of resources and materials you'll have to sink into one of these things to go ahead and keep it maxed out across your Star Trek Fleet Command career is immense. So sure, if you can get on it early, then do it, but understand that if you are a player that's not very economical to begin with, this thing is going to bankrupt you in a lot of cases, and you're going to stall your progression in other ways. So just keep that in mind. It is not a cheap ship to build, and I don't think it's 1000% necessary to have one to enjoy the game. But if you really, really, really want one, then go ahead and do those missions that we talked about. Go ahead and keep working towards it in your Bajoran store, and hopefully we will see it in the End of Arc event store next month. 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵, if you're watching for some reason, hint, make that happen, please. If you haven't seen our Defiant debut video yet, it's right over there. Subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you to our amazing supporters. Choose to live, and we'll see you again soon.